Good morning, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. We're in day 9 of our 30-day accent challenge, where we bring you a new video every day live with information for improving your American accent. We've been working on pronunciation, intonation, some of the big picture so far, and some details. Each day there's also been practice materials on my website that you can go to that accompany the lesson to take what you've learned and begin practicing it to see some real changes in your speech. So I hope you'll check that out on speechmodification.com. Remember to subscribe to get notified each time we have a new live class or when I upload a new video. And today what I'd like to talk about is related to pronunciation. And it came from a question from one of our viewers about the placement, where we make sounds in the mouth. He was talking about how it was helpful to know that the R sound is made in the back of the mouth rather than the front of the mouth. We talked about that on day 7. So go ahead and check that out if you have questions about American R. So today we're going to talk about exactly that. It's called placement, and it's one of the important things to understand about where we make sounds in the mouth. Specifically, we're going to talk about consonant sounds. We did talk a little bit about vowel placement for the last 2 days, and we'll come back to talking about vowels again after this. But I'd like to help you understand some of the reasons behind having an American accent, or having an accent when you speak American English, and working towards an American accent. So the sound system in your native language affects how you speak other languages, and it affects how you make consonant sounds. And one of the ways it affects it is where you make those sounds, where in the mouth. That's called the placement. And so when you, in your native language, certain sounds may be made in a slightly different place in the mouth. So sometimes you don't even have a sound at all for some of the sounds in American English, and then you may be making it with incorrect placement. But sometimes you have a sound, for example, the T and D sounds, T and D. Many languages make those sounds in a different place than American English. So in American English, we make T and D at the alveolar ridge. That's basically on the top of my mouth, behind my teeth. There's a spot, a raised area, and my tongue goes up there, t, t, d, d, and closes off and makes that sound. So in other languages, T and D might be made by pushing the tongue against the back of the teeth. D, d. It sounds different, and it's another way to make T and D. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the way we do it in American English. So if you're using a T and D sound that came from your native language that's made in a different place, for example, behind the teeth, pushing against the teeth instead of at the alveolar ridge, that's going to be part of why your speech sounds different when you're speaking English. Now, for a lot of sounds, if it's something like that, it's not really going to affect how well you're understood by American listeners. So some of the placement errors are small details and really something to be working on if you just want to really get that American sound and you're feeling like, what is different about my speech? Why do I have this accent? Some other types of placement errors are a much bigger deal. So for example, the TH sound, Americans make that as an interdental. That means my tongue is between my teeth. We've talked a lot about that in my American TH playlist. You can check that out and get some details. But if I'm making that TH sound any other way, for example, again, people will make it behind the teeth instead of between the teeth. So then my the sounds like the, or my with sounds like wit. That can be enough of a placement difference that people won't understand your speech. So prioritizing sounds and error patterns that affect being understood, of course, is more important than the little details of placement. But what we're going to look at today is overall information about placement that will help you with both. It'll help you if you're an advanced learner who really wants to get those last-minute fine-tunings, what's really different about how my speech sounds, and it will help you for those of you who are really looking to make sure you acquire all of the sounds of American English and use them correctly. So, in addition to placement for consonants, we also have something called manner. that's what we're doing. So placement is where we're doing it. Manner is what we're doing. Are we stopping the air, like in the sound for the letter P? P. I'm closing off, I'm stopping all the air, P, and then I'm releasing it. Are we making a fricative sound where we're making friction noise, like S or Sh? I'm adding noise by restricting the airflow. That's called a fricative. Anyway, we're going to learn more about manner in another class. And then we also have what's called voicing. Am I using my voice? Zzz, or is there no voicing in the sound? S. So we talked about that on day 4 when we looked at S and Z sounds and other voiceless and voiced sounds. So today we're not worrying about manner, we're not worrying about voicing, we're just talking about placement. So in terms of placement for American English consonants, some of the placement we can see visually, it's very clear. For example, the first category we're going to talk about is called bilabials. Basically that means I make it with both my lips. So the bilabials are p, and b. They're made with the lips. That's the primary place of articulation. Next, we're going to talk about what's called labiodental. That means I'm using my lips and my teeth. And basically, in American English, we just have the f like F and a V like V. And that's made with the top front teeth and the bottom lip. So f and v are labiodental. Then we have what's called interdental, and that's where I'm using my tongue between my teeth, and we talked about that. We have th and the TH sounds. We have alveolar, which I was talking about with T and D. Alveolar is made, are sounds that are made with my tongue placed behind my teeth in the front. I'm going to show you a chart that you'll find on speechmodification.com that has all of these sounds. And so far we talked about bilabial, that's the lips. We're moving from the front of the mouth to the back of the mouth in this chart. So the bilabial sounds p and b and m. Oh, I also forgot w. W is made with my lips. So that's a bilabial sound as well. Then we talked about teeth and lips, labiodental, f and v. And then we talked about interdental. Alveolar, there's quite a few more sounds. So alveolar is, my tongue is behind my teeth and it's at the ridge on the top of my mouth. So the sounds for alveolar are the T and D sounds, t, d, S and Z, s, and z. My tongue is not touching the alveolar ridge for those, but it's in that placement in the mouth. And then n and l. These are sounds where I'm touching up and I'm holding. N and l are touching to the alveolar ridge. If I go a little further back in the mouth, the front is the alveolar area. Then palatal, that means my palate, the middle of my mouth, I'm making sh, zh, ch, j, and ya. So when I was giving you cues yesterday about making, or on the weekend, about making the R sound, I was having you pay attention to the K and G sounds and saying that it was the same place as the R sound. So the R is pulled back, and actually the R is more palatal. It's mid-back as opposed to all the way back in the velar sounds for the K and G. But pulling back to that K and G helps pull your tongue for R rather than being in the front, being alveolar, r, to further back, so the velar sounds, K and G, k, g, and ng. The placement, my tongue is in the back. So palatal is middle, velar is back. And then lastly, glottal, that's more at the glottis at the throat, is the h sound that we use for words with H, like hot and high. And there it's much harder to feel. My tongue is back, but it's not closing off like it is for some of these other sounds, or touching. Okay, so that's kind of a lot of information, all those things thinking about placement. What I wanted to do was give you that overview, and you can find this chart and examples on speechmodification.com. Go into free resources and free online practice, and you'll find the 30-day challenge there. I'll also have a link for you in the description and in the corner later. Why learn about placement? So we talked about initially how your placement can be different and can make your accent sound different. What are some typical errors we have for placement? So for the bilabial sounds that made with two lips, the p, b, and sometimes what we find is that for the W sound, w, where I make two, I use both my lips, it's bilabial. Some people may make more of a v sound, so they'll use a labial dental, lip and teeth, v instead of w, or interchanged. Also, sometimes people will, so if you're trying to say the word very, you might use both lips instead. It might sound like wary. People will also try to use will use a V sound instead of a W sound. They might say ver instead of where. A lot of Indian English speakers, Russian speakers, a few other languages have this W and V issue, and they will also sometimes make a W without really using the bottom lip. So they're not really necessarily saying v, but they're not saying w with the bottom lip. You can learn about W and V in my video about that. That's one placement error that you might find in speech. Another major placement error is for those TH sounds, as you know, the interdental. A lot of people with a lot of language backgrounds will make that more with the tongue behind the teeth in the alveolar or in a dental behind the teeth position instead of interdental. I have a whole playlist of American TH that will help you with this. You can go there with this link. And then for some people, that difference between the velar and the palatal can be pretty tricky, also with alveolar. So for example, Mandarin speakers, they have a tendency to interchange the n, that's velar, alveolar behind the teeth, n, and my tongue is pressing back for that sound. In Mandarin, they have actually a palatal sound there that's in between n and and they will sometimes use that sound in place of either of these sounds. So that's another placement error. And then, of course, we talked in detail about the R sound. That's a lot of people might make that more as an alveolar with a trill, instead of back here in the palatal region. So how to work on this? Of course, you'll work on individual sounds and change your placement if you're doing an incorrect placement on certain sounds. But for this general lesson, for the introduction to placement, I'd like you to just try some words that have sounds with different placements. And by doing so, you might be able to feel, are any of these placements more difficult for you than others? Do you have a pattern there? And then how about moving from place to place? Can you go from a sound that's in the front of the mouth to the back of the mouth and vice versa? So let's try a few words. We're going to do some words that have bilabials, the two lips. Try the word mom, people, web. I should be feeling that in my lips. It all should be very forward in my mouth. Let's try some labial dental. 5, vi. I should be feeling my teeth and my lips connect. Interdental, we'll try the. I should feel my tongue between my teeth. The. Now let's try some alveolar sounds. Tiny, lot, says, not, don't. I should feel my tongue up behind my teeth on the alveolar ridge. Let's try some palatal sounds. Try shoe, chew, judge, rich. My tongue is more in the middle of my mouth, in the palate, not in the front of the alveolar or not back in the velar. Let's try some velar words. Try kick, gag, king, going. I should feel that my tongue is pulled back more in my mouth. And lastly, glottal, we'll try hi and he. Now let's try some sounds where we're having to move from place to place, and you may find these to be more challenging. We have a tendency to sometimes stay in one place rather than moving from front to back to front. We'll stay up in the front or stay in the back because it can be easier, especially if we don't have certain sounds in our native language. Let's try the word beat. I'm moving from bilabial to alveolar. Beat. Try peak. Bilabial to velar. Peak. Try wing. Moving from bilabial to velar. Wing. Try push. Bilabial to palatal. And try chip. Palatal to bilabial. Let's try one that moves through from the front all the way to the back. Try buttercup. I'm moving from bilabial to alveolar to velar. Buttercup. Try popsicle. Popsicle. Let's move from alveolar to interdental. Teeth. Teeth. Let's move from bilabial to labiodental. Whenever. Whenever. So some of those may have been trickier for you than others, depending on the sounds in the word and the placement of those consonants. I hope this helped you get a general understanding for one of the aspects of how we make consonant sounds, which is placement. We will talk about manner and voicing and some other aspects of consonant sounds in other videos, other days. For today, try going to speechmodification.com and try some of these words. Take another look at this chart and get a feel for the placement of consonants. You can also find charts like this for your native language and look to see what consonant sounds you have and where those sounds are compared to American English, and that can be helpful in understanding why you may have an accent on certain consonant sounds. Congratulations for making it to day 9 of our 30-day challenge. Stick with us. We've got great things coming up in the rest of the 30 days, and I'm really excited to see the progress that you make if you work on your accent for 30 days. If you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com.